So I think it's as simple as that, man. Like if you love it, man, if you go hard for it, then your work is going to be different from someone who doesn't. Like your work is about the effort, like the effort that you put into it, the thought that you put into it comes with that emotion, that shows up in the work. And that's all it is. That's
Yeah,
really
I think with strategy edition especially, it's a very unique industry where to get into it, the amount of free labor that you have to put into it is unmatched. Like
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to work with some really big coaches and some great mentors, but it's still free.
Absolutely the most important. I think our customer support is preternatural to our competitors. The biggest compliment we can get is when someone replies, "Wow, that was a fast response," or "Holy crap, I've never seen someone respond that quickly," or call back. I have 5 people on my customer support team, a 6th person who does tactical customer support in the military. When someone picks up the phone and calls TeamBuildr, number one, someone is going to pick up and put a human voice on the phone. I think one of the worst things about business today, in the States, globally, whatever, is that you can't pick up the phone and talk to a human before hitting 18 buttons and going through a machine. When you or Coach Mac or whatever tell someone, "I use TeamBuildr, do you like it?" "Yeah, they're great. Customer support's awesome, and I trust you." Done.
Just before the podcast gets started, I want to say a big thank you to everyone who watches it and supports me on the daily. If you could leave a rating on the podcast, that would help me land people that I would love to talk to. So if you're enjoying the podcast and you like what I'm doing here, make sure to rate it. Yeah, thank you. Hello and welcome to PA Chalk Up. Today we've got someone that's kind of changed the way that coaching is done now, and I personally use TeamBuildr, so it's a great honor to introduce Hewitt. How are we doing?
Hey, Manny, thanks for having me on.
No, it's all good. That pleasure is mine. Honestly, I kind of cold email a lot of people and just drop messages to everyone, and I'm very surprised that you answered. But so I appreciate you for coming on and spending some time with me.
I'm happy to do it. I don't go on every podcast that I'm invited on to, but the strength coaches are my people. So just, by way of you being a strength coach, I'll hop on the podcast. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I genuinely do appreciate it. So if you just let us know who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I am the CEO and co-founder of TeamBuildr. I didn't use the CEO title until we had maybe 10, 15 people in this company. I felt like when it was really small, I didn't want to call myself a CEO, not a 5 people. But we celebrated our 11-year anniversary as a business. We started 11 years ago. And we are a software for strength coaches to write training programs, distribute training programs, and collect data on athletes. I built the company with my roommate from college, and we were teammates. We played Division III football here in the States. And we didn't really have a strength coach at our college. It wasn't uncommon back then for a D3 school to not have a strength coach. So what ended up happening was everyone on the team, regardless of their position or their year, training age, they did the same training program all year long. And we started asking some questions like, hey, why is the training program not differentiated based on position group or training age? And the answer was, at a small school with little resources, it's hard to put that much effort and time into designing a training program. And Excel was also a limiting factor. And we were interested in building products or services. My partner, James, is a computer scientist. And we started building a software that we thought could replace Excel to save coaches time programming workouts and allow them to write more individualized programming. And then also the smartphone came out with the apps. So, if you could download the app and get your workout and plug your numbers in, then that was more efficient than a paper-based system. And that was the origination of what TeamBuildr is today.
Yeah. So what was the process like between sort of going through not having a program and a coach to then building it, and how long does that process take?
The first step, how long it took Well, this is, we're what, 21, 22 years old, stepping into an industry that we didn't really know because we're not coaches by trade. The first step was to actually meet a strength coach and understand their process.
Mm.
So I went to Johns Hopkins. Everything is Division III except for one team, the lacrosse team, Division I. So of course the Division I team had a strength coach. So we went to that guy and we said, "Hey, can we just sit
Mm.
down and watch you write a training program?" And we saw that it was calendar based, because it was fitted around practice and games and classes and days off and whatever. So the original version of TeamBuildr was calendar based, and that's how
Right.
we sort of learned, was to sit down and watch someone do the actual job on Excel and then turn around and see where the efficiencies were when writing a software program. And then from there, it's just a big, long, iterative process. Um, and the judgment comes in when you get coaches to use your software and give you feedback. You're going to get this really unique feedback, and it's going to be, this is how I do things.
Mm.
You have to sort of pick that apart from what people do as a whole, because if you start adhering to one person's individual process, then you go down a rabbit hole and it may not be that valuable to other people. So I think what we did really well was that we understood when coaches sort of slammed the table and said, "Hey, I do it this way, I do it this way." We said, "Okay, well,
Mm.
I see the value in that, but we're trying to capture a best practice across the whole strength and conditioning audience and only build those things because we want to provide maximum utility, because that just makes sense for our business."
Yeah. So how was the process of you reaching out to these coaches and getting that time with them?
I thought in the beginning that if I went to sport coaches and sort of pitched the sports coach and then got referred to the strength coach, that was the way to go. But I was wrong. That was a huge waste of time. Um, I sort of I sort of found out that strength coaches have a lot of process that the sports coaches don't really even know about. And
Mm.
when sports coaches refer someone to a strength coach, the strength coach might be like, "Okay, this is coming from someone who really doesn't know what I do or how I do it." And then I had to sort of switch to going directly to strength coaches and kind of sharing what we were doing from the bottom up, not the top down.
Mm.
And then that's how I learned about the NSCA and the NSCA conference. And I started learning about how strength coaches got together at these like mom and pop clinics and grassroots clinics at the state level, at the local level. The Pennsylvania State Clinic in Juniata by Doug Smith, it's like 100, 150 coaches. And that's just him putting it on. But that was a big deal. And I started going to that. So and then Rich Gray, who was a strength coach turned, vendor with Hammer Strength.
Mm.
Now he's like the VP of global sales at Play. He grabbed a hold of us early when someone introduced him to us 10 years ago. And he sort of explained how the strength and conditioning industry worked. And he said, "Look, it's a people business, and like it's really little. So your reputation means a lot, and you really need to understand how strength and conditioning is different from sports. It's not sports." And oh my gosh, is that so true, right? Like I'm at the Thanksgiving Day table and people ask me what I do for work or whatever. And I want to say quickly, just to get it over with, I work in sports, but really that's so not true. I work in strength and
Mm.
conditioning. I work in human performance. That is not the same thing. And I think understanding that early was really important. That if you come in with a sport mentality, you're going to come in and be like a fish out of water in human
Yeah.
performance.
I think it's the amount of different directions that we have to be pulled in,
Hmm.
because we need to think about not just getting athletes from A to B, but we need to think about any type of prevention, any type of sort of little things that could go wrong. We were speaking about Coach Matt previously, and he's got this thing where um, the time that strength coaches spend with athletes is like 10% of whatever they do on a day to day
Hmm.
or in a week to week, month to month.
Hmm.
So that 10%, we have to mitigate anything that they might do in the 90%.
Yeah.
So for me, it's you're 100% right. I've narrowed mine down to I just work with athletes in the gym. Like
Yeah.
that's the easiest way for people to understand what I do. But again, it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Sorry.
No, no, no. I was just, I mean, I don't want to turn the podcast into like a sport versus strength and conditioning thing, But
Yeah.
I think that could be its own podcast episode on its own, because I've just learned so much about that differentiation. And when I've learned about it, every time I learn more about it, it makes me appreciate strength and conditioning more, and it sort of depreciates in my mind sport coaches. Not all sport coaches. There are some great ones for sure, but so much of sport coaching is really just based on intuition, whereas strength and conditioning is based on give me some hard numbers. And there might be some intuitive strength coaches out there. But a lot of the time, the conversations in strength and conditioning are sort of backed by, well, did it work? Does it work? I mean, prove it. And I like that so much better as a business owner, because, we do things on the business side based on performance, on outcomes and results. And there's some intuition, but if we can help it, we want to go for some quantitative, backing. So that's what my sort of perspective has been on sort of observing the niche of strength and conditioning within sport.
Yeah, that's a very good point that you mentioned that, because one of my favorite features from TeamBuildr is you can put questionnaires up for athletes to fill out, and then it takes away some of that guesswork. Where although you can do it in the gym, hi, how are you doing? How did you sleep? But as soon as they wake up, they can fill out a quick form, being like, I've drunk so much water yesterday. This is how I feel. This is how I slept.
Yeah.
And then when they come into that session, you've already got a baseline of, okay, this is where the session could go. So I'm going to make different alterations to it so I can properly plan for this athlete.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I give you an example on my end as a business owner? If you go to my website, teambuildr.com, you'll see that the button that asks you to schedule a demo. Yeah, there's the website. If we can go to the home page, just teambuildr.com, we'll scroll down a little bit. Check out the little button that you see. It's going to need some time to load. Okay, that one right there. So that blue, that blue color, that was not arbitrarily chosen. If you go back and just look at it, that's not in our marketing style guide. What we did was we did intensive testing on our website, A/B testing, and we found that blue color had more clicks, had more engagement than any other color that we tested.
Yeah.
No one knows why. No one could guess why that particular blue, which I think is kind of ugly, is performing the best. But what matters is that we actually went through the process of putting up several theses, testing them, and then finding the best performing one, and then taking the best performing one and testing that against other variations over and over again. And then now we have this button on our website that doesn't match anything in our marketing style guide. It sort of goes against the rules of marketing, the rules of design. But in terms of performance, because I'm performance oriented, not design oriented, and I just think that is like a microcosm for what coaches do all the time in strength and conditioning. And in sport, I wish we just saw more of it in sport. There's a lot of coach's eye going on, a lot of coach's intuition. And my intuition when it comes to the website color would have been totally wrong, because I never would have picked that. But that's the one that yields the best results. So that's how my mind thinks, and I think that's why I connect well with coaches.
Yeah, that's fascinating actually. How much of that goes on behind the scenes then? How much testing do you do on the website and the sort of functions and features?
We probably have, we probably have 12 variations of our website running at all times. Not every single page, but some pages have multiple variations running. And on a monthly or every 2 months, we evaluate the performance of different copy, different colors, different placements of objects on the website. And what's funny is that there's never an explanation. The computers that do this work don't explain to us why things are working or not working. They just tell us what does. So our website is sort of always changing to capture efficiency at the margins.
Yeah.
And the same is true inside the product. I mean, we really want to see where coaches are spending time in TeamBuildr as an application, and how can we reduce the number of clicks, reduce the number of page, switching pages. And, when you stack up those marginal efficiencies over time, that's, I think, what gives a product or a company longevity, is that you have to continue iterating even if it's at a very marginal rate, if it's continuous, then I think over time it materially impacts the customer in a way that gives your company lasting power. Yeah.
And that does ring true, because the best features about TeamBuildr is how quick and accessible everything is. When you're like on the sort of gym page where every workout's there, and then your athlete picks his name and then just goes through it, and then you can quickly switch to another player.
Yeah.
But everything is there.
Yeah.
How did that process sort of come about?
It starts with my partner, James. He has always been very good at and attentive to user experience. The user interface is sort of how things are laid out for you, right? And you can make a user interface really, really pretty, but the user experience on that same page can also not be very friendly, because that's how we actually interact and conduct actions and functions on the page. He's always been very good at user experience. And I think it's because he values it for himself. When he goes to a website or to an app, he's always observing his own experience and understanding if it's good, bad, and what makes it good or bad. So I think we just happen to have one half of our leadership be someone who's very obsessed with user experience. And I myself, I like good user experience. I'll go in there and after something is built or prototyped, and sort of give my perspective as like a coach. I put myself in the coach's shoes. Look, the inside of TeamBuildr is not as pretty, right? The user interface is not like as pretty as it could be, but we're prioritizing experience over interface. So it's kind of like, I don't know, take a car that's sort of ugly but is just fast and turns well and performs well. TeamBuildr is not ugly by any means. Like, we're much better looking than some other stuff out there, but you only have a finite amount of time to put into your product or service. How you prioritize how that time is devoted, it's just like designing a training session. Like, the energy system only has so much to yield in a given training session. You got to go in a certain order, and you have to know like where your output is on the way down to where you're exhausting it. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to our developers, our engineers, and all that.
Yeah. Speaking of a team, I do know that obviously it was started with you and your partner, and sort of from a very early age, and then you've developed it. How has that company grown since then? How many people do you actually have on board?
Well, today we have 37 employees total. I think that makes us the largest company. In fact, I know it makes us the largest company in the strength and conditioning software space, if you don't include AMS, right? So it started with just James and I, and the journey in between. It's like a hockey stick curve. In the beginning, things are really slow and iterative, and especially the way that we built our company, we did not pursue the traditional tech company sort of playbook of raising capital and then hiring and then sort of trying to generate revenue to then catch up to the capital that we raised. We did it like bootstrapped, slow and steady, slow cooked out of the garage. James and I worked until our revenue allowed us to pay ourselves so that we could quit our full-time jobs and then transition to TeamBuildr smoothly, right? Minimize risk. We wanted to be in this thing for the long run. All right, revenue generated some more. Then we went and hired our first person. We thought it was really important that we hire a customer support person so I could focus on sales, so that, all this stuff. And then we just kept hiring as the revenue grew slowly, but then the revenue grows more quickly. You add more bodies, more human labor, human capital. Things get built faster, and then the things start speeding up. And that's kind of where we are now. Like, we grew our company like 50% in headcount in just the past year. And we've been in business 11 years. So like, that's the natural progression of things. It's not like the market is adopting us at a faster rate. Is that we're building this platform out at such a rate that it putting itself into the market at a faster rate.
Yeah. So how important is that customer support for you and the progress of the company?
The most important. Absolutely the most important. I think our customer support is preternatural to our competitors. The biggest compliment we can get is when someone replies, "Wow, that was a fast response," or "Holy crap, I've never seen someone respond that quickly," or call back. Um, all I have 5 people on my customer support team, a 6th person who does tactical customer support in the military. They're all strength coaches by trade. They're all CSCS. When someone picks up the phone and calls TeamBuildr, number one, someone is going to pick up and put a human voice on the phone. That's how we do it. I think one of the worst things about business today in the States, globally, whatever, is that you can't pick up the phone and talk to a human before hitting 18 buttons and going through a machine.
Mm.
And it drives me absolutely nuts. When you pick up a phone and someone says, "Hi, this is Hewitt with Acme," you're like, "Oh my gosh, I got a human on the phone." And then you don't even have to have the right answer for them. You win the interaction by just presenting a human on the phone. So that's number one. And then number two, when the person says, "Hey, I'm trying to implement triphasic into TeamBuildr, I'm having some trouble." If the other person on the phone knows triphasic and can talk shop with you as well as talk the product, you're good. You're in business. We can't lose that customer interaction just by doing those 2 things first. So I get way more business in referred to TeamBuildr by my existing customer base than I can ever do by having sales and marketing go out there and bring strangers to TeamBuildr. When the sales and marketing team goes out and talks to a coach who's never heard of TeamBuildr, they may come and do a demo and they may be a customer eventually, but like you're gonna work really hard to gain that person's trust. When you or Coach Mac or whatever tell someone, "I use TeamBuildr, do you like it?" "Yeah, they're great. Customer support's awesome, and I trust you." Done. That I just accelerated the sales process by like 75% right there. So how do I encourage more of those interactions taking place with coaches that are outside of my control? I got to have customer support that is just unreasonably good, right? Like customer support is not a cost that I'm trying to mitigate. Customer service is an investment where if I can make it higher quality, if I could add inputs, money, people, whatever, to make it better, then it's going to have a yield on the other side for my overall business. So, dude, it's so important.
I can personally vouch for this because when I used TeamBuildr when I was at the University of Washington with Coach Mac, and like the process was so smooth, and it was just so like everything was there because I'd been used to Excel.
Mm-hmm.
So having a platform where my athletes can just get it on their app, on their phone, and just go for it, I was like, when I came back home, I was like, okay, I'm going to start taking my coaching to the next level. I was like, TeamBuildr is the first thing I need to get, and it was because everything was so smooth when I worked across there. When I got it, um, I scheduled the demo. Within, I think it was the next day, I got a demo with, I forget his name, but I got a demo,
Chris
and
was in the UK as well. Chris.
yeah, it was Chris. Yes, yes, sir. Um, and then he just took me through everything, sent me all the good emails to like follow, and so I can send him my exercise list so he can put it on. Like he did, he just went above and beyond, and I was like, this is quick.
Mm.
I've recently been having some issues with my accounts. I emailed in straight away. Then a couple hours later, I got a response, and everything's dealt with. I'm like, this is this is quick. This is nice. I
Wow.
actually was going to try and find the email so I can give a shout out to who I spoke to.
On the support team.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. It's
Rennie.
who?
Rennie, is it Rennie?
Oh, Renee. Oh, Renee.
Oliver?
Renee.
Yeah, Renee.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
big shout out to Renee as well. She worked really hard to start getting me up and running as well. So
Awesome.
big shout out to her.
Okay. Nice. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I don't know, like we're going to talk about other things, but like it's just hard to overstate how important support is. Like if I if I had to get something tattooed on my chest, it would be the monologue, right? Customer support is not a cost to mitigate, as it's an investment in which
Mm.
inputs provide overall positive yield on a guaranteed basis. That tattoo it right there on my chest.
No, and 100%. Like it's so like everything is so smooth, and I sound like a fanboy of speaking to you right now, but like it's made the process so much easier, and because I really appreciate the science side of S and C, and sort of different physiological adaptations that we can bring through it.
Mm.
Like I use all the science, sports science side of TeamBuildr to implement those. Like all the heart rate, I measure all my athletes. I then transfer down to my Excel sheets, break everything down, but then I supply the information straight away back to them. And
Mm.
it's a good way to give your athletes sort of everything in one place. That's again, it goes back to the user interfaces and how you actually go through them. Is
Yeah.
everything is one app,
Yeah.
and that's what I love. It's like
Yeah.
everything is just there.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you saying that because we look at our platform because we're in it every day on the builder side, and there's so many things that I want to build. I want to fix that. I want to. So to hear you compliment it means a lot because it helps us put it in perspective. Like, hey, this thing's pretty good and it's delivering a lot of value. But at the same time, I want to say we have big plans for this, right? 11 years in business, right? 4,000 customers. Like this platform is good, but we're thinking of it as like, oh, we have big plans for TeamBuildr. We still have so much more we want to do. And so it's all about balance, keeping it in check. I think it's important to think about what we do well today and understand that, and then think about things that we don't do or that we're weak at, and addressing both. I don't want to take it too extreme one way or another. So sports science, if it's an important part of your process, as a company, we're committed to incorporating more and more sports science principles into our platform because I think we believe the field of strength and conditioning is heading that direction. But I want to get your opinion because you're in it. Here in the States, especially, I think internationally, sports science has always been a big part of a strength and conditioning coach's process. But in the States, do you think that sports science is going to play a larger role in the future?
100%.
You do.
I do 100%, and it's again, I stay in contact with all the coaches at UW, and they're already heading that way. Big shout out to Coach Cream, big shout out to Ryan Crossan as well. They're that side of the winning program that they've made this year.
Mm.
Obviously, UW's 12-0,
They're so.
going to Vegas.
I love watching that team.
So like the progress that they've made in what 2 years now since Coach Mark has been there,
Mm-hmm.
it's just grew, and that's because he's got amazing staff with him. Like Coach Cream, like deals with everything sports science, and it's actually quite scary speaking to him because he's smart, like smart.
Mm-hmm.
But the sports science of it, like the GPS data, the heart rate data, uh, I don't know how much I'm able to speak about this, but they're checking sleep as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so making sure that those metrics are good enough to push athletes as hard as they can.
Yeah.
But I think these little metrics is what makes you take your program from here to up there.
Yeah.
Something else is, like you mentioned before, the UK and sort of Europe style coaching is more science based. It's more theory based.
Yeah.
America is more coaching based.
Yeah.
But it's like trying to marry these two, which America is slowly doing. But their sport is going to go above all nations if they introduce more sports science.
I see. Do you ever draw on your personal experiences when coaching or when running your process? Because like an example for me, I use this example. There are days where I go to the gym, and if I were to score myself on how do I feel 1 to 10, I might be a 3. Like, I just don't feel good. I don't feel springy. But I start lifting and like, man, the bar's moving fast. I'm going to add some weight. Bar still moving fast. I didn't see that one coming. And then yesterday was an example of where I came into the weight room and I had taken like a week off from Thanksgiving, right? And I felt kind of springy. I was kind of bouncy. I was ready to get in there, and the bar moved slow. And I, had fewer reps in reserve than I thought at the end of the set, and the session was not a powerful session, right? It was just sort of like grind through it.
Mm.
So I just bring that up to say like how someone feels, in my opinion, based on my experiences, is generally not a good indicator of how someone will perform that day or train. So do you ever have personal experiences that you draw on to run your process?
All the time,
Yeah.
like all the time. And this is something that I learned a lot from, like what we had mentioned before the podcast started. Coach Max sort of made me see like how real he is about these things. So like I've now started doing it, but it happened yesterday actually. I was coaching some athletes, and he's a 90 kilogram judo athlete, um, and he was doing um, snatch presses, and he sort of like threw the bar down because he was disappointed because he never got the full 5 reps. So for me, I like to make sure that when they go to the next set, their mind frame is completely different, so that they can start building up instead of tearing them down during the session. So for me, the first thing that I went across to him and said, I was like, "How many times have you lost in your sport?" And he was kind of taken back. He was like, "A lot." I was like, "Me too. Does that affect you today?" And he was like right now, does that affect you? And he was like, "Not really, neither." So why are we going to dwell on a bad set when your next set's coming up? And like that just became a mantra during that session yesterday. And they were like, every time they failed, they just like shrugged it off, and then they went back into it.
Uh,
Like you can feel terrible, like it's disappointing to fail, to miss, to do
right.
something wrong, but having that next step, right? I'm going to do better this time. And I
Mm,
think it's little things as well. So I've got this big, I live my life through this as shy boys don't get sweets. And that just means that if you're not willing to go and get it and chase after it, you're never going to get it.
mm,
So it for me, it's kind of like, and I drill this into all my athletes, is like, you have to work for it. Because if you don't, someone else is going to.
mm,
And then you're going to be no sweetless. Like you're going to be sweetless.
yeah.
So for me, it's like there's so much of my personality that I let my athletes into, because for them it makes it feel like I'm a human, not a robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And when you got to work for it, work, right? The operative word there. It's nuanced. It you know it's about, for me, consistency.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that it's not like it doesn't mean that it's going to be linear for you, like up and to the right every time you come in the weight room. The weight's going to go up, the speed's going to go up, all that stuff. But it's about the fact that you're coming in every day, and the coach is going to help you get the right session that day, and move the right weight and move the right way. But man, it's not linear. That nothing works that way. And personal growth, personal progress, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, nothing's a straight line. um, and that needs to be. Here's kind of the thing: school in an academic setting sort of teaches a straight line. You go with 4 years in university, and you go all the way through, and you get through the classes, and you don't really have academic settings teaching how you can improve a little bit and then not improve and de-improve, and as long as you're working towards, you're embracing a process that kind of sort of gets you through it. But that's how life works. Right? Like, there's nothing linear about life. Maybe in the long run, if you plot all the dots and you run the line through it. So just taking your athlete's example there, I think is important. Work is like showing up and giving good effort on a consistent basis, and then sort of minimizing expectations during the process, and then the results of the results is kind of how I like to think about it.
No, and it's just there's so much nuances to it as well. You can't coach everyone the same either.
Mm,
Like everyone's so individual, and we were kind of speaking about books that we've read before in the industry, and I've spoke about this book so much, but the Conscious Coaching by Bert Bartholomew,
mm,
like that is one of the like that's one of my bibles when I'm speaking about strength and conditioning coaching. Is like there's so much individuality that goes into it that you need to sort of know who you have with you. Like if someone's had a rough childhood, you need to know how you can't just scream in their face because they're going to tune you out.
mm,
If someone's had a pretty decent life, you can sort of give them a couple. digs, like they'll be fine. They'll get that resilience from it. And I
Uh,
think there's so much to coaching and how to properly coach as well.
you think I think I've heard sports coaches talk a lot about recruiting personality types and trying to at least have a narrower range of personality types on a team. I tend to sort of agree with that. Maybe not in sport, but like in my
Mm,
company, for example, I find that if there was too much variety of personality types, it'd be difficult on our management to mitigate and manage so many different personalities. You have opinions about that? Like if you're building your own staff of coaches, or if you're putting a team together, do you think it's
Uh,
first and then let the personalities lie where they lie, and then go from there, or do you think that there's some merit to thinking about having homogenous personalities?
yeah.
What word am I looking for? Homogeneity, is that the word?
I think it's. I think you were right the first time.
Hmm.
Yeah, just marrying them. I think business speaking, I think you're 100% right. I need to make sure that everyone sort of matches. Like obviously, there's people that'll be better at one thing than the other,
Hmm.
which is 100% important, and they have to have opposite views. But I did a previous podcast with Sachin McDonald, who's a strength coach in Seattle as well,
Hmm.
and he's got this rule of the 95% rule, where you can agree 95% of the time with someone. The 5% that you disagree on is highly important, but it's how you speak about the 5%. You can't have someone that's so certain on their way that they
Hmm.
completely dismiss the other person. It's like, can we agree, at least agree to disagree on the 5% and make it like a cohesion type based um, sort of chat and properly speak about everything without getting too heated or
Yeah,
things. Like I know personality is a big thing,
yeah,
and you kind of need varying types of personalities in a business.
yeah,
And it goes the same for sports and athletes. Like you need different types of personalities, and they all need to mesh.
yeah,
When they don't mesh, that's when everything goes to pot.
yeah,
And then, so I 100% agree with you. Like it's important to know who's on your team and personalities, and if they mesh, if they don't,
yeah.
it's also how to converse during those 5% of disagreements. That's my personal view.
If you have two people who agree on 95%, and then those are the important things, I would say that's a personality match. you know, that's, and that seems important. Um, so that's interesting. I really liked hearing that. On the 5% thing, how people talk to each other is really important at our company. Uh,
Mm,
Words are so important. Um, and how you choose your words, I think, is so important. The difference in how you say the same thing to someone
mm.
is really matters, um, in terms of respect. In terms
Yeah,
of respect.
I was actually going to ask, what's the process behind like your hires and how you go about each sort of hire for each position, and what is it that you look for?
Oh, well, take my team, for example. I run the non technical team: customer support, sales, marketing, sports science. When I say non technical, I mean they're not engineers, they're not coding on
Mm,
the product. So looking for personalities and personality traits is really important in my process. It's also important in the engineering process, but you have to have these hard skills as well
mm,
to go along with them. So it makes hiring a little bit harder on that side, I believe. Um, I like hiring coaches, strength coaches. I love it. I haven't done it the entire time, but it's evolved into being. I hire strength coaches, and I really don't hire anyone else now. Because their work ethic, I think, is just so good. I think that's so important. I think their respect for our customers is unmatched because they've been in their shoes. They have
mm,
empathy with the customer. If I hire a non-strength coach, they'll never have the same amount of empathy for our customer. Empathy is so important in business. It's important in life. We don't use that word enough, but that's
mm.
a really important word. And then on top of that, our company culture sort of coaches people on speak, on how we speak. People can come from a coaching environment where people talk to each other like curtly, spoke to each other in a way that we don't do at TeamBuildr. So if you're one person coming into a company where there's 17 people on my team, more than likely you will begin speaking like us. Maybe not in the beginning, but like over time you will. And I think that's important. Being courteous, being polite, being kind. I sound like a big softy here, but like I care about this stuff. I don't like any sort of confrontation or any of that in the workplace, in my workplace.
I
Yeah,
think that's crucial. I do think that's crucial because and I think this is why companies are successful is their ability to maneuver through these hardships and keep everyone sort of like with each other as opposed to against each other. And I actually, when you were speaking, I've thought, have you seen a correlation between coaches who have worked in the public industry, so like public gyms or sort of private, where they're having to deal with people, and coaches who have just been able to coach with teams?
yeah, yeah. I see a bit of a difference for sure. Um, the ones who work teams are insular, very insulated. They tend to be like a product of their staff,
Mm,
and sort of like the program. So they kind of have these traits that were built up over like the course of their tenure within a given staff. At a gym or a facility, they usually have like a bigger perspective on fitness in general and people in general. Um, so I see a difference, but not so much of a difference materially that I would judge one versus the other.
mm,
I think you can get good quality from both.
100%.
Um, so I would say this: if someone was in the fitness business, human performance business side, without being in a team setting, their entire career, that person's going to look a little different. And I tend to hire people who have some team experience at least,
Mm,
because that environment builds some really good traits, in my opinion. Some really good ones in the team sport space.
100%. I think it goes back to that team cohesion that you were speaking about. Is people who have performed part of a team, they're more able to speak and communicate with each other on what they're lacking, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like I know Coach Max is a big thing where he has someone for everything that's a pro at everything,
Mm,
and they all mesh. Like Coach Max, just Coach Mac. He's Coach Mac. Think he's programming. I managed to pick his brain quite a bit about programming. Like it's so simple. Like the way he described it, that was like, yeah. Why isn't everyone talking about that? Like the clearest example I remember was pushing and pulling. He was like, they need to match up. I was like, what do you mean? Like, oh, you need to pull as much as you push. That's a balanced athlete. And I was like, yeah. And then I was asking him backup questions like, how do you balance power and strength and hypertrophy and accessory works? And he was like, I'll send you a textbook. Like, they're so willing to just pass it forward as well.
mm,
Coach AJ's Olympic weightlifting, like he's meathead through and through, and that's why me and him connected. Coach Cook, he's Excel, like everything Excel, and like the way he just transfers between Excel and TeamBuildr, and after every workout, all the data gets sent to him on TeamBuildr, and then he just like Perch as well. Everything just gets sent to him, and he deals with everything.
mm,
Cream is like GPS data, any type of sports science stuff. But it's like these marrying of skills that he does really well. And I
mm.
think that comes from the leadership.
Yeah, it certainly comes from leadership, no doubt. And Coach Mack would say this, like, the success of a leader is the sum of their parts. The people they put in place and how they put them in charge of things.
Mm,
It's taken me a lot of time, and still today, I'm still figuring out what my team really should look like in the future as we grow and those sorts of things. But I did unlock the one key that's helped me out a lot, hiring strength coaches. I didn't always do that. Now it's all I do. So I got that one figured out.
So how's the process between like entrepreneurship been for you, and like how have you found that leadership role and your progress through it?
Well, I think one thing about entrepreneurship is that there's no rule book. There's a 1 million books out there. There's not one rule book. You have to still think for yourself, and you still have to think outside the box, no matter what you're doing, no matter how many books you read. That's a really big one. I've sort of become a little bit more opinionated about how to go about running a business, whereas 5 years ago I was sort of looking for answers from other people and listening to podcasts, trying to see who had the keys out there, and that kind of thing. It's a mix of both, but it's so important to just be authentic. And I don't know, for me, it seems like it's working. For James, it seems like it's working. I mean, for others, if you're being your authentic self and your businesses keep failing and you're not doing well, then maybe I think it's possible that some people aren't meant to be entrepreneurs, or at least successful entrepreneurs. It's just kind of the way it is. But it doesn't mean that's just for now, right? Like, things change. TeamBuildr was created at the right time for this industry. Had we been early or late, I don't know if we would have been as successful. So that's something for people to keep in mind as an entrepreneur, is that that whether you're experiencing success or failure by your own given standard, that's just for right now. That doesn't mean anything about what will happen for you in the future. And then it becomes a function of, do you want to keep going or not? And what's your appetite for staying with it? So those are some thoughts lately that I've had about, being an entrepreneur in general. I think I see other entrepreneurs out there and just notice some things that, there's a lot of excitement that comes with starting something new. And I think that's great. I think that's really good. But here's the thing. I'm in the 11th year now. It's not necessarily sustainable to be in the 11th year who I was in the first year, and especially in terms of how I work. So, like, there's another young entrepreneur that I work with right now, and he was slacking me on Thanksgiving Day. It's a major holiday. And I thought to myself, I have 2 kids. I'm not working today. I'm not working the day after Thanksgiving. I want to spend time with my family. This person has a family as well, and they're slacking me. And I didn't reply. I replied on Friday. But the thought that came to my mind was that, do you want to work on Thanksgiving 10 years from now? I don't. So why would you employ an approach to work today that's not what you want for yourself 10 years from now? I would rather employ an approach to work that works for me today as it would in 5 years, as it would in 10 years, as it would in 15 years, because I want to be consistent. I want to have something that works, and that works in the long term. Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, they didn't have, they're not looking for 100% annual returns. I think, Charlie Munger died. He was the other partner in Berkshire. They returned 20% a year from 1960 something to 2023. It's just so consistent, it's so good. And I want to think about that for entrepreneurs. If you're staying up for 24 hours straight working, are you doing this now so you don't have to do it later? Like, the Dave Ramsey thing, live like no one else today so you can live like no one else later. Fine, give it a shot. But my preference is to not do that. I want to employ an approach to my personal life, to my work life, that works for me today, the same that it does in the future. And I just want to work on that and sort of being the same person and having the same process that works. So understanding what that is for you, I think, is important. If you're going to be a person in your 60s that's pulling 24 hours straight and just going ham, then have at it. That's just not me. I want to get my 8 hours at night.
Yeah, I think that's important to have. It goes back to that consistency, and I think Will Smith kind of put it the best way. It's like, lay one perfect brick every single day. At some point, you've got a fully built house that's perfect.
Yeah.
And I think it's that consistency, like laying that break down every single day,
Yeah.
plotting away, and just like working at it. And I think that's quite inspiring.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't mean staying the same, right? Like,
No,
no one out.
it's that growth mindset as well. Like you have to.
Oh, you have to have it, but it's iterative, marginal growth. I've got my desk set up here, my work from home set up, and I'm always kind of tinkering with what makes it look better, feel better, what makes me more productive. I've got my assistant at TeamBuildr, and we're always kind of talking day to day about how we can do things a little bit differently. That's iterative and marginal. It's low lift, but consistently over time, that's going to make really big changes in how we work. So I like that approach personally because I was always in it for the long run. When we started TeamBuildr, James and I, we never gave ourselves arbitrary milestones to hit because we just didn't know how long this would last. All we wanted to do was enjoy the process and see some progress. And we did. We did. And it took a lot of time, like 11 years for a tech startup. Most tech startups try to achieve really rapid growth in very few years. Because of the way they're structured. But the way that we're structured is it's just James and I. It's two people who are accountable and responsible for this company. And we felt like we wanted to enjoy it, and if we could, then we could stick around a while and then let the chips fall where they fall.
Yeah, that's really cool actually. And I think it's that accountability as well that I quite like. And you it's like what I was saying before, you kind of have to show the human side and like the process behind everything. What has been some of the mistakes that you've made, and what did you learn from it?
Hiring not strength coaches. That's not like a broken record. I'll find something more original for you, but that is true. I mean,
So what was it about the non-strength coach approach that you didn't find so efficient?
I mean, strength and conditioning. Like here at TeamBuildr, we love this shit. Like we go hard for this, and that shows up in our work. And take someone who doesn't really know it. It's really hard to get them to love it, to go hard for it, because they've never been there. They won't understand it. So I think it's as simple as that, man. Like, I think that's really how it is. So yeah, I think it's really that simple. It just if you love it, man, if you go hard for it, then your work is going to be different from someone who doesn't. Like the work is about the effort, like the effort that you put into it, the thought that you put into it comes with that emotion, that shows up in the work, and that's all it is. That's really all.
I think with strength and conditioning especially, it's a very unique industry where if you get into it, the amount of free labor that you have to put into it is unmatched. Like you
Yeah,
can be 2, 3 internships in,
yeah,
and you're still an intern.
yeah,
Like that could be 3, 4, 5 years of like I've personally since 2020, 2020 I've been on internships. Like it's just plodding away, building up your resume.
yeah,
Like I've been fortunate enough to work with some really big coaches and some great mentors, but it was still free.
yeah,
Like the trip I took to America, that was I paid for that,
yeah,
but I saw that as an investment into my future.
yeah.
So I was like, take my money. Like I wasn't going to get D1 experience in the UK. So for me, I was like, I was jumping on.
To someone outside the industry, like if you talk to a friend who worked in banking or worked in real estate or whatever, what we do as coaches, like what you just described, it's unreasonable to them. They wouldn't understand that. And that's how I want our customer support to be. I'd love for a consultant to come in and look at my company and say, hey, this is unreasonable how you staff this team, how quickly they get back to people. I think there's, like a more financially efficient way to do this. I would say no. This is what we do. We are unreasonably good and fast and responsive to our customers because that's what we do to set us apart. Like you don't see the yield on the back end. You don't see how it's appreciated. and how it comes back to the company. You're only looking at it as this business unit, and how can we make this business unit more efficient and financially. So that's the analogy right there,
Yeah, and you kind of spoke onto like the customer side of the industry. This is mad to me because like you've got everything from sports teams, high schools, colleges, military as well. Like how have you built up to sort of connect with all these different sort of sectors?
One thing that's good about working with strength and conditioning coaches is that if you're a strength coach with the Royal Australian Air Force, and you're a strength coach at a high school in Wisconsin, or you're a strength coach with the GAA in Ireland, at the end of the day, you got to sit down and write some programming and you got to put it out there and collect the training data. And it actually, no matter what sort of vertical someone works in, at the end of the day, they're a strength coach. So we're sort of building our platform, building our product, our company around this position of a strength coach, and not necessarily trying to adhere to too much to what vertical are you in. It makes it hard when the GAA coach says, well, here in GAA, we do this, because then we'd have to say, I'm sorry, TeamBuildr is not a product for the GAA or the Royal Australian Air Force or for high schools. It's for the strength coach. And we're sort of betting, right? We're putting our eggs in the basket of, we're building for the position. We're not, trying to get off into rabbit holes for the military or for college or high school. But I believe in that vision, because like the strength coach is important. At the end of the day, there's this core function that is so, so important. And I think it's more important than any sort of customization you could do to any given setting, I think.
100%. That's the best way to put it, because it's like the simplicity is often the most important thing. Is like, can any strength coach pick up this thing and go with it?
Yeah.
And like, it's Coach Mack again. He always challenges everyone to sort of think outside this box. And he was like, if we're working out and we have no equipment, what do you do? And you're kind of like, well, a lot of coaches that I unfortunately know would be screwed, because they need a barbell, they need dumbbells, they need a squat rack. But the body can move regardless of the equipment. You can do manual resistance. Like, can you hold someone's arm and push it down while they're trying to push it up? That's load, that's resistance. You can build on that. And I think it's often the simplest ways of doing things is the best and most efficient way, because then anyone can pick up and go. Is that what you found with sort of every strength coach that you've came in contact with?
Found what exactly?
Sort of their ability to just pick up this one thing and just run with it in their own way and styles.
That was how the platform was designed. Yeah, going all the way back to Rich Gray again, the guy who told us who a strength coach was. He said, look, man, strength coaches all do things a little bit differently than one another, and they take great pride in that. So you have to accommodate for that. He wasn't giving us product advice. He was just explaining how it worked. So the platform couldn't act as a boundary to a coach. It had to basically enable a coach to take their philosophy when it comes to designing programs and then placing it on TeamBuildr. That's super important, because, man, coaches take a lot of pride in their programming, how they design a program and how they approach things, and especially the ones that change over time. So yeah, I have found that coaches can and do stay creative. I think it's the good ones anyway. I think they do. And the platform certainly accommodates that. I mean, we really couldn't have a platform that didn't accommodate sliding sets, right? Because maybe I do sliding sets this cycle, maybe I don't. But I need to be able to express myself, express the art of what I do as a strength coach, if TeamBuildr eliminated that wouldn't be good. So yeah.
No, and the perfect example I found of that in TeamBuildr is in the cardio section of it. When you're building your programs, you've got the cardio,
Mm,
and then you can sort of build up whatever you want and just place it on it. So I learned this from Coach Cream, and it's the 10-10-12s. So you've got 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 12 times, 4 minutes work, you rest, you do some mobility type stuff, and then you go back and you do 3 or 4 sets, which is very high intensity,
mm,
very low oxygen reserves for your muscles and how that oxygen process works, but it gets people so much fitter, so much quicker.
yeah.
But with TeamBuildr, it gives you that option to sort of place that in, and then the athlete knows 10 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and then he just works through it. And
Yeah.
it's the ability to sort of you can literally program everything, and that's why I personally love the way that TeamBuildr is set up, because you can take your nuances and just like throw them in there, and then your athlete, because he spent time with you, he knows what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah. That's that when I talk to people who don't work in coaching about my product, about TeamBuildr, I get the question a lot, like, what are you guys working on next? Like, there's one big new feature, like there's one big breakthrough, right? Tech company, you guys got to be innovating on something, right? Well, the innovations are actually the little things. Can you accommodate sliding sets? Now we can. That's a big deal. That's going to help a lot of coaches out. Can we prescribe rest between sets and rest between reps and put a timer in the mobile app? All right, we're not reinventing the wheel. This isn't SpaceX. We're not sending rockets to Mars. But holy shit, we're helping a lot of coaches out by doing some little things for them that help them out, that help their athletes out. So that, in my opinion, is what makes for a good product. It's just constantly searching for these small iterative things to help improve on. And over time, it's going to turn into like a really nice, well-oiled machine. Thoughtful things, have you ever ridden like in a BMW? You're in the UK, so you probably have, right?
Yeah.
Those guys think about the smallest little things, like if you don't close the door all the way on a BMW, it just kind of sits up on the door jamb. The little BMW, the little claw inside pulls it back. And so, little things. That's good engineering. That's good product. There's so many examples of that, of people who do that really well in the world. Apple is the best known example. The iPhone is just so good. But there are so many companies that, it's the little things that sort of set them apart, not the big innovations. Because, man, is the iPhone that much different than an Android in terms of like big functionality? Like at the end of the day, it's just a supercomputer in your pocket. I say it as if it's like a small thing, like, oh, it's just a supercomputer. But they're both supercomputers. If you were to judge them from, in terms of like technologically what they can do, it's really the small things that add up to a really good user experience that probably makes the iPhone generally preferred over the Android if cost wasn't a factor. I know there's more Android than iPhone, I think, in Europe, but I think a lot of people also have iPhones.
100%. Funny story, actually. So I used to be an Android user. I say used to be. Until I got to America, funnily enough. Everyone runs off iPhones. So Coach AJ was like, "What are you doing? You have a green bubble. Get that changed ASAP." I was like, we were testing once, and so what happens is we film the test. We then have to send it to Coach AJ or Coach Mac, to anyone who's like on the coaching staff. I sent mine to AJ, and he was like, "Never do that again."
Because the quality wasn't good.
Yeah. So I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
So as soon as I got back to the UK, my contract thankfully ended as soon as I got back. And then the first thing I did, as I messaged AJ, I was like, peep the blue bubble. And he's like, love it.
He just bought you an iPhone. It didn't bother him too much.
It's 100% like it's just a small computer. And I think because it goes again, it's like so user friendly and simple to use that it just works.
Yeah, it just works. I could never switch. I can never switch. As I think about it, Steve Jobs only rode BMW motorcycles. He refused to touch another brand of motorcycle because he just appreciated so much how much thought went into the design and the engineering of a BMW thing. There's so many examples in the world. If you are looking for inspiration, anyone out there who's working on something, there's plenty out there. But at the end of the day, the hard part is turning around and committing to that process yourself.
100%.
The new big features, they make for good social media. Like we just put one out. I mean, they make for good email. Like they're good on LinkedIn, right? My company's doing things, man. We're pumping out this big new feature. Okay, great. The people who are logging in every single day and spending an hour, 2 hours in the calendar building workouts, those save them a couple seconds every day on something. Save the athletes a couple seconds every day on the mobile app, and stack those changes up, and like that's gonna make your company built to last.
Yeah, I think that's a key word as well, is like built to last. And
Mm.
it's some of the biggest companies in the world, that's what their sort of mantra is. It's like built again. Any type of German motor is built to last.
Mm.
Like Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW. Like how many times have you seen engine failures with them?
Yeah,
Not often.
the reputation exists for a reason.
100%.
Yeah.
On some of the features that you were just talking about, you've recently partnered up with, um, not recently, but Gym Studio and
Oh yeah.
uh, Placemat as well. Jumpmat, sorry.
Yeah, jump mat. So I'll do
Yeah.
the studio real quick. A lot of our customers are gym owners, like private facility businesses, and they pay for TeamBuildr, and then they pay for like a schedule and member management platform, MindBody, whatever. And we basically decided that hey, people really love the TeamBuildr experience, and we got a lot of feedback that people did not love the MindBody experience or the experience they were getting from the other software providers. So Gym Studio is our attempt at extending the TeamBuildr experience to gym owners
Mm.
for scheduling classes and managing memberships, like payment processing for members. So that's all that is we have to do things here to stay stimulated and compelled. And we thought, hey, building a TeamBuildr like experience for gym owners is a cool thing that we want to try our hand at. So that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Plyomat is a jump mat company started by Rich Burnett, and he's been a customer of ours for a while. And we were looking at the jump mat space, and we thought, hey, this product is really good. It's a young product. There it is. And there's a digital component. That mobile app there is something that I believe can work with TeamBuildr. So that jump mat data and testing protocol data results can go into TeamBuildr automatically. So the idea is that we want to take Plyomat as a product and elevate it in the whole jump mat space, and then connect it with TeamBuildr really tightly. So this is just TeamBuildr sort of expanding in human performance. We've done a good job offering TeamBuildr, and now we want to offer the TeamBuildr experience in other ways, including in jump mats and member management platforms, and maybe some other hardware categories. So man, I'm so excited about Plyomat because the combination of like affordability, durability, and the accuracy of this jump mat is really, really awesome. And we haven't even gotten to the good part yet, which is integrating it tightly with TeamBuildr. The jump mat, the way it is today, is a fantastic product. And you think about it this way: you've got the EPLs of the world and the Power 5 football, the UWs, right, that have force plates and force decks. That's fine. There are a lot of strength coaches out there, this, that will never get a force plate. But man, they could really benefit from doing something similar with a jump mat, and there's just a lot of room to get this product in a lot of coaches' hands at an affordable rate, and get them to do some great assessment, training, testing. It's going to be, it's just a product that I think is really practical, and that's what we like at TeamBuildr. We like things that are practical, affordable, that can impact a lot of people, that has a lot of utility across the space. So that's what it is.
100%. Plyomat and any type of jump based testing is a good marker for athlete availability as well,
Mm.
which that's the key thing with our job roles is we need to make those athletes as accessible as possible all the time.
Yeah.
And just keeping these like little metrics, especially if they connect and integrate straight into TeamBuildr,
Yeah.
you can exactly see how they're doing day to day, week to week, how that measures monthly, yearly, and you can keep it really tight because it takes what 2 seconds to jump 3 times.
Yeah. There's you're so right that the application can, I talk about going to the gym, right? I felt great yesterday. I felt great.
Mm,
If I went and jumped on a jump mat, it's like you might feel great, but you're not jumping as great as you feel. That can help guide my training session that day, right? I might not have to take as much guesswork to
mm.
load myself correctly. I don't feel very well, but I'm jumping out the gym. I know you're not feeling good, but I think once you get under this bar, you'll be surprised how fast you're moving it. Like you're going to get a full training session in today. Like we're going to dose you. And then you're talking about like over the year. Wow.
Mm,
What if you could get both? What if I could, assess my athletes before the training session and dose them correctly? What if I could look at jump data over the course of a year, overlaid with my HRV data, overlaid with some GPS data, right? And I can tell that every time my athletes jumped really poorly, the volume on their GPS was spiked 2 days before. Well, I probably could have guessed that, but now I don't have to guess it because it's right there looking at me in the face. That's what the TeamBuildr Sports Science Hub is going to be for people.
It's also a lot easier to peak your athletes because you know exactly when they're heading that way, and then you can be
Mhm.
like, okay, this is what we did, and this is why you peaked. Let's shift and apply to your competitions.
Yeah.
If you do better with high intensity plyos and then you peak straight after, we're doing that.
Yes.
If you're more controlled type strength based and then you peak, let's do that. It is that you can keep track of everything.
Right.
And back to what we were speaking about, the sports science of S&C is getting big because again, our job is the availability. If we know, okay, if an athlete comes in, we check a heart rate on him, a polar, we check it on him, and then it's sitting above what he normally comes in with. Something's happened that day. He is stressed for some reason.
Mm.
Then it comes like, what have you been doing today? How did you sleep? Did you eat, drink? What's going on that your heart rate's up? Oh, I ran in. Simple. That's fine. Your heart rate's just because you ran.
Yeah.
It's just one of those.
Yeah. And look, I think anyone who's trained in a team setting ought to believe that some athletes have a genetic capacity for load, and more than others. And it would be really, I think, important to sort of understand that, because if the sport coach is open to load management at practice, man, then you could take a scientific approach to who genetically has the capacity or not.
Mm,
Because the game is the competition is the competition, and we should be peaking. We should be optimizing for it. I think any athlete in the first place that's competing at a high level has the capacity to compete, right, at competition. But when it comes to the accumulated volume of practice and competition, then we should certainly be taking an individualized approach if you can afford to, right, in terms of time and that kind of stuff. Um, all this combination of data, I think, smartly can bring some good insight to that. I think about the individual capabilities and capacities of your athletes.
Is this something that you're shifting a little bit more of a focus now into? Is like that sports science element
Yeah,
of strength and conditioning?
yeah, yeah. We call it the Sports Science Hub. Right now, we have a module that does wearables, takes wearables data and charts it out, along with questionnaire data, charts it out. And we're releasing a module on force plates soon, and then we'll have a module on the plyomat jump protocols. So we're just going to add more and more modules. Now, like, this sounds like AMS, maybe it is, I don't know. AMS is like you've worked with them, I'm sure, in the past. AMS has been sort of everything for everyone, right? A lot of customization. TeamBuildr is more of like out of the box as a product, and it's like the thing that you get in the mail that you pull it out and it just works. Like, I don't have to call, I don't have to ask them to do this, do that. So we're trying to build data visualization with multiple data sources that just works. This means that if the New York Red Bulls call up and they say, "Hey, the way we do it here is we actually do this." This, and this. We might say, well, you need to keep working with your AMS or go get an AMS. But that's not us. We're trying to take the tried and true principles that work and sort of give them to everyone. So that's a different approach, but that's our company philosophy. I build TeamBuildr just as much for the high school coach in Wisconsin as I do the strength coach for the Royal Air Force, as I do for the GA coach in Ireland, to use that same example. Like I'm looking for utility across those three settings. I'm not trying to be at the facility for the New York Jets, helping them win a Super Bowl. It's for someone else to do, not for me.
Yeah. Have you looked much into sort of working with sort of menstrual cycle apps and how they program, like how the female monthly cycle impacts their sort of performance?
Not yet. Not yet. I think that'd be an example of something that's still too narrow for us at the moment.
Yeah.
At the moment.
So the reason I ask is I did my bachelor's dissertation on that, and it was sort of this. The title was "Women Athletes' Perception of Strength and Conditioning Coaches." Now, female athletes are great because they don't care who's in the gym with them, as long as they're knowledgeable and they know what they're doing. They can provide feedback, like all the good stuff. They don't care who's in. But one thing that they did find is that strength and conditioning coaches don't necessarily consider that when they're on their time of the month or they're sort of going through these peaks and valleys.
Yeah.
And now my research is sort of focusing on like the psychology and the physiological impact of it and how that impacts their performance. That's like something I've found really fascinating getting to know, and I think I've personally downloaded a lot of menstrual cycle apps, and none of them take athletes into consideration. So for me, I'm pretty much just like, how can we develop this area that's still very new and very not worked on?
Sounds like you have your own business venture on your hands.
100%. I've been thinking about it, but I'm a strength coach.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're both. Who knows?
Yeah. No, but that's an area that's currently fascinating me a lot, and there's a lot of development there that's pretty unique. I know that you've mentioned that you work with different types of coaches and from performance to military. How is it like getting access to these military sort of information and data?
Military is challenging. There's a lot of red tape, so to speak, and I can see on the coaches' faces when they go take these jobs in the military that they're really happy with a 40-hour work week and a little bit more autonomy when it comes to the training and their jobs. But then they also work within like a little, even more of a bureaucracy than they do in the college setting. So what's interesting with the military, though, is actually, you would think because it's military that there's a mandate to train, and there's not. The soldiers typically have the option to train. So it actually, in the military setting, resembles more of like the NBA and the NFL, where you're trying to kind of like co-opt players into training and eliciting effort, than in college, where you show up and train in college, or you're not part of this program. So that's what I think is interesting about the military, is that there's actually more of like a human element than I thought there would be. Eliciting effort and incentivizing attendance and participation is a really, really big deal in the military. So that's sort of my insight to that industry at the moment.
Yeah. What's it like building relationships with these camps and sort of the red tapes that you have to go through?
The coaches in the military setting are civilians, and they worked with uniformed personnel in terms of navigating the system. It's frustrating. And being a vendor, you're like the third wheel trying to coordinate these two other components to sort of work together. But at the end of the day, if someone wants your product and sees the value in it, they
Mm.
will find a way to acquire it. So it's at the end of the day, it's about demonstrating value. You have to show either the coach or the uniformed person how your product can positively impact the outcome of their soldiers, in order to generate business there.
Mm.
So that's still the game at the end of the day. But it's a new industry. Like, it's very new. The Army and Air Force, for example, have hired a lot of coaches in the last couple of years, more so than ever before, to basically take the collegiate style of training athletes and bringing it to soldiers, which is really good and really cool. The process is just a little bit slower. And I don't know what the future holds for it. And, because it's all dependent on how much funding they get, which here in the States, funding is usually not an issue, but, it also goes to missiles and drones and not just strength coaches. So,
Yeah.
look, I just want to help strength coaches where it's feasible. I'll be involved. TeamBuildr will be involved in the military space as long as there are strength coaches there that are eager to train soldiers. And we'll go through the effort to make sure that we're available and all that. But I don't prioritize one industry over another. Military over college over pro. The pro teams are good. Like, we've got the logos on the website. Okay, fine. You kind of have to do it. That's how the game's played. All right. But I'm no more proud of working with the Denver Broncos than I am of working with some really high quality strength coaches that are in the high school setting, where their kids are coming to train with them, whether they play a sport or not.
Mm.
The weight room to them is empowering. It gives them confidence, and they give their coaches a hug, because they're like a bright spot in their day. That is very important to our industry. I think it's very important to the social fabric of our society. So we serve them all, and not any one industry is more important than the other.
Yeah. I think you've nailed it. It's like that human connection to the product that you're building and everything else that's going forward is like that interaction with the coaches and the app. Is that something that you've just sort of always stood by?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. There's just too many good people in all these industries, right? Like, there's so many good coaches at the college level, at high school, and internationally. I like working with them all. I genuinely enjoy people at our company do.
Mm.
So I just don't have any interest in sort of taking a business approach to elevating one vertical over the other.
Yeah.
Just want to serve them all equally, as long as it's still viable for our business, and I believe it is. So I think that's the approach.
Yeah. I've so I approached you on LinkedIn and we've kind of touched on LinkedIn and your stuff on LinkedIn. I kind of went ham. I got the premium the subscription for
Look
LinkedIn.
at you.
Because like my thought was like I want to connect with as many coaches as possible so I can talk to as many as possible.
Mm,
And like the thing that I did is I went on TeamBuildr on LinkedIn and I just went to people and like what I did is I added every single one that was like a strength coach or related to like my side of the business.
mm.
And something that personally shocked me was like the retention of stuff that you've had over the years.
Oh yeah.
How have you sort of built up these relationships with your staff and the continuous progress with them?
Well, yeah, you're right. No one's actually elected to leave our company yet. We've had to let go of people, unfortunately, but no one's actually elected to leave. We're really proud of that. At the same time, I believe that everyone at our company knows that James and I want people to do what's best for them. We want them to give themselves the best opportunity in life, to have the best
Mm.
quality of life. So if that means somewhere else, that's totally okay. But also, I think the fact that we're even acknowledging that is probably also the reason why a lot of people stay. I really do care about the quality of life of my employees. I want them to be really, really happy. James and I are not their therapists. We can't go at the really, really deep on this stuff, but we can do our role as their employer, which actually is a pretty big role. You spend a lot of time at work. You sleep a third of your life, and then the other third is work, and then the other third is your personal time. That's a lot. So we do have a big responsibility to be conscious of and acknowledge our employees in terms of their happiness and quality of life, and make a conscious effort towards serving that. So like we are a remote company that helps a lot of people out. It allows people to live where they want to live. If you want to live close to your family, or not close to your family, if you want to, whatever, we work towards supporting that structure as the leaders of the business. We don't allow work from home. No, we support work from home. We facilitate it. There's a difference. And I think if you take that approach to all these other facets of what, your employees value, that makes the difference in just being a workplace and being a workplace that really supports your employees.
100%. And I think that's something that I really connect on. Is like, I've experienced some jobs that the higher ups just cared about what they were doing, and everyone underneath was sort of just like an afterthought. And seeing that relationship that you have built, and like you're allowing people to just be comfortable where they're working, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in terms of allowing that much freedom with your staff?
It starts at the hiring process. You have to hire people who understand the contract and honor the contract. You work remote on a computer. There's no one around to monitor your work or your productivity for the most part, at least not on a constant basis. So I can't bring people in who are unable to handle that responsibility. You have to bring people in who are ready for that responsibility. The privilege. It's a privilege that can be used for good or for not good, in terms of the contribution to the company. So it all starts with hiring, man. If you don't bring the right people in, that model doesn't work. If you bring the right people in, I think the model works really, really well. So we're very discerning about who we hire, and I'm very discerning about sort of understanding the personalities and the work ethics and the orientation, the orientation of the person that's coming to our workplace and how they'll fit in. So we're very conscious of that.
Yeah. So what would be some advice that you'd give new people coming into the industry or thinking about joining this industry?
Joining like a company like mine, or
Or a company like yours in strength and conditioning?
Oh, it's gonna be different. Different for a company like mine than going into coaching. I don't have a lot of advice for people who are going into strength coaching. I usually hire people out of that industry, not necessarily helping them get back into it. For people who are looking to join a company in my industry, coming out of coaching, let's just speak in that context because that's the one I'm most familiar with. Coaching can be insular. You could be on a staff and really just work with people on that staff, and then not really. You go to NSCA and CSCCA and maybe do some networking. But as soon as you switch gears, right, and have to go work for a company, you're going to have to shake that off pretty quick. And you're going to have to get really good at being able to hold a conversation productively with someone for the first time, and you initiating it. Mm-hmm. Coach Mack is good at this because I know that he went out there and talked shop and reached out to people. And that's why he is special. Like, there's not a lot of people like Coach Mack. He put himself out there and expanded his network really quickly at a size that no one else has really done. So if you're a coach and you're only interacting with the teams that you coach and the coaches that you coach with, and maybe a sport coach here and there, maybe an admin here and there, you gotta, that mentality is not going to serve you entirely well. And when you start joining the private sector, let's call it the private sector.
Mm-hmm.
In the private sector, you're expected to produce, on the results of the business. And it's a sales and marketing role. You have to collaborate and work productively with people outside the company, and you have to initiate those conversations. So that's sort of like a discrepancy in skills, I think, that can be possible when moving from coaching to private sector. I think of some coaches who have been successful at it. They go to play, right? They go to Sornex, they go to some of these other companies. They usually got hired because they demonstrated an ability to network really well outside of their individual coaching positions. They knew a lot of coaches at other schools. They are participants at the roundtables at the NSCA. They're involved. Those people get hired into jobs with people like play and so on.
Yeah, it's Coach Mark. This is, and you've mentioned it, is his network is so wide. Like when I was there, like we had coaches from the Australian athletics team come in, um, collegiate from Winnipeg come in, and just like different teams just like came in and just performed with us, and I was like there wasn't a day that I wasn't shaking hands with some other strength coach that just came in.
Yeah, yeah. Not every facility is like that. There are most facilities collegiately, no strength coach from other schools coming in, because the person running the program is just focused on what we're doing, and I just have to focus on this for now, right? That was not the excuse for Coach Mack, ever. No. But that's why he's special. Coach Mack will always have a position waiting for him in this industry, whether it's coaching or not coaching, working on the private side. And I think it's for a lot of reasons, but that's one of them.
Yeah, again, like I personally owe a lot to Coach Matt because like just the hands he's helped me shake, and just like he's the one that he's the sole reason behind this whole podcast. Is he was like on my exit interview, he was like, "I want you to start a podcast, speak to as many people as possible," and that's how I see you doing really well in this industry. Is like you're a coach. I respect your coaching style, your philosophies and principles. Go speak to as many coaches as possible. I was like, he saw something in me that I've never imagined doing this. Like I'm very awkward in front of a camera, but on a podcast when I'm speaking, I'm fine.
I think you're really lucky to have worked for someone who had the insight to make that recommendation and also was thoughtful enough to think that way about the people under them. Not everyone's going to get that in coaching, but you got it. I think that's really cool.
What were some of your best advice from mentors you've had?
I haven't had a lot of mentors. I think, at like the family level, I probably learned a lot more about what not to do than what to do. I think in my early professional career with my early bosses, I think I learned a lot about what not to do versus what to do. And I've only had one mentor really in this whole thing. And even with a mentor that I trust and respect immensely, you're even a person like that in your life can't give you all the answers. There's no degree of self responsibility and self accountability, a large degree of it for your company and your personal life. So, but back to the original question, my mentor today has taught me to think bigger and to think longer term. That's easy to do when there's no immediate opportunity today. It's harder to do when there's an immediate opportunity that conflicts with a larger vision or a longer term vision. And it takes a lot of guts to turn something down that seems like it's really good for you, but yields a lot in the short term at the expense of something in the long term, if that makes sense.
100%.
Like in a job situation, it's like turning down a job that looks really, really good on paper right now, but maybe is not as fruitful to your career as what you're currently doing. In a
100%.
in a business setting, it could be someone may want to buy your business, and it might seem like a really, really good opportunity, but then it takes like a big ego check to say, well, if I just keep going, I could revisit this later, have more of an impact on more people, and have a better quality business. But it's just going to take more work and more time and more patience and all these things. So having that perspective has been the most helpful thing about working with a mentor for me.
100%. I actually heard something similar from a coach that's trying to come into this industry, and he said one of my mentors, which if I'm not wrong, it's actually Michael Boyle, industry legend. Um, and he said, if you're saying yes to an opportunity, think about all the no's that you're giving to other opportunities, and it kind of gives that perspective of it is exactly what he's saying. I might say yes to the best thing short term, but will that be beneficial and fruitful in the long run?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. Sorry.
I was just going to say, opportunity cost is, you learn about it like in an intro economics course, but it's sort of like this lifelong exercise, right? It like evaluating opportunity cost is something that we will always be doing for like the entirety of our lives.
100%. Where do you see sort of TeamBuildr? Or is there anything cool that you're really excited that you're working on?
Well, man, we talked about a few of them. I'm super excited about Gym Studio in the gym space, facility space. I love this Plyomat product. I'm like so excited about it. I've never been involved with hardware before.
Mm,
Um, as like an owner operator, so Plyomat's really exciting there. The Sports Science Hub, bringing data visualization and sort of sports science analysis to the masses, super cool and super exciting. So, yeah, man, those things really got me going. And that's a lot of work too. So to think beyond that, maybe I think about it beyond it sometimes, but that's a lot. I got a lot of work to do with those couple projects
yeah,
on TeamBuildr at the
keeping your
moment.
hands busy.
Yeah, yeah,
No, I do really enjoy the Plyomat stuff because you can get so much data from it. And it's like what we discussed earlier, it's like you can tell exactly where someone is in their sort of macro cycle
yeah,
based on some of these metrics, and
yeah.
integrating that more into different types of programs, I think will be a big thing that's coming up.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And it's accurate. It was built really, it's built differently. The design is like nothing else out there. Uses two metal plates that touch and don't touch, so it's just instantaneous. That accuracy, I think, is going to be really important to coaches over the long run. If you're going to be tracking data on an athlete over the course of months and years, you're going to want a jump mat that's really accurate. If it's just a given day and you want to see if they're bouncy or not that day, it may not matter. But if you want to incorporate this into your long-term process, you really want an accurate mat. And I think that's a big reason why we like the plyo mat so much.
It can also give you some really good metrics on ACLs and how they operate. Because say so we've done this sort of assessment at uni where we were jumping a hurdle, landing 1 foot and bouncing off to the side. And depending on how much pressure you're consistently able to put out under fatigue, you see some really good metrics because it just dips because your knee angle starts getting lazy, so it caves in, and then
Yeah,
you're bouncing off, and so there's less. There'll be more weight because you're spending more time on it. So that
yeah,
could be a really good metric on
yeah.
fatigues and how
The
ACLs
lever has
behave.
to move a longer distance to generate the force. I see. Interesting. Yeah, the jump mat. I call it a jump mat, but the plyo mat, the plyo mat original founders, they want to be sort of beyond the label of jump mat because of exactly what you're talking about. Like that's angular, that's agility, and that's a really good point.
Yeah, and like sport isn't linear. It's
Yeah,
not
sport
always
is not
linear.
linear. Yeah, that's right. So you're exactly like if you're just looking to come jump off the mat, Are you bouncy or not that day? Look, fine. Do we want to peel back the layers of the onion? The mat can do both, and that's cool. That's super cool.
I think it's that thinking outside the box as well. It's like you can do so much with a plyomat, and like different angles you're able to achieve. You're able to go 90. You're able to go 45. Somewhere in between. You're allowed to use these different angles on it as well. I think that's fascinating to me. Anyways.
Yeah, I mean, this is Rich, the founder of Plyomat, talks about how it's overall a very young sort of. I don't even know what you would call it. It's a young practice using plyomats, and it's young, like it's in the infancy of sort of its effective lifestyle development of coaches. So I think that we're going to see a lot of really cool stuff coming off the plyomat and similar products from a research side and from a training application side too.
Yeah, I mean, I've fortunately had access to plyomats throughout my career, and I find them to be a really useful way to measure where your athletes are. Because like I learned a lot at university because we use them so much in biomechanics.
Yeah.
So stuff like fatigue fascinates me because like often you're having to perform fatigued.
Yeah.
And the thing with research is everything's controlled.
Yeah.
Your sport isn't controlled.
Right.
So being able to adapt these specific parameters, you're able to know how that athlete best deals with these situations.
Yeah. Depending on the sport, critical moments of competition take place in the fatigue state, especially when the competition is level. You think about like a team or an athlete that's much bigger, faster, stronger, has an advantage early in a given play or a sequence, but the more level of competition, it's about the fatigue state and sort of like what happens and what result takes place in the fatigue state. But it's very sport specific. A lot of different sports out there. So like that's a very broad sort of statement that I just put out.
Yeah. No, but it's very broad, but it's very applicable to a lot of different movements, and I think that's where I find the most fascination aspect of S&C is how can you balance the athlete out? How can you measure everything to these sort of new heights?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and balance is key. If you have a lot of toys to play with, I think it'd be easy as a coach to go down any one rabbit hole with whichever tool that you're engrossed in at the moment. But making them all work together in a way that works in the long term, I don't know if I could do it. I mean, I can build the software to do it, but to be the man in the arena or the woman in the arena that's responsible for creating the system, it's exciting, but also, I have a lot of respect for the people who are putting those systems together for their respective programs.
Yeah, I like that's the thing that I found as well. Is like this industry is so tight knit. Like if you know like one coach, there's a chance that you've got a wider network, and you can just sort of reach out and just connect and just
Yeah.
talk shop as well.
Yeah, I think you sort of have to. I'd be surprised if anyone was achieving great success without doing that to some material degree. Yeah.
No, 100%. I've kept you for an hour 45. I understand you're a busy guy as well, so I appreciate you so much for coming on.
It's been fun.
Is there anything that you kind of want to plug or shout out?
Oh, if you're a strength coach that doesn't use TeamBuildr, I'd love to work with you. That's all I want to say. Even if you're not interested in TeamBuildr or any of these things that we talked about, I want to connect with you. That's just what I found my sort of passion to be, is just talking to strength coaches. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on the social media platforms, but I'm not necessarily interested in talking to anyone outside of strength and conditioning. I just want to connect with a lot of coaches. So hit me up on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever. I just want to know who you are and talk shop and that kind of stuff.
100%. I'll put up your LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, there you go. That's our company retreat there in that top picture.
I was actually going to ask this. Because I saw this picture and I was wondering how often and how like the perks that you sort of introduced to get this sort of buy-in from everyone as well.
Yeah, once a year. Once a year, we get together in person for a company retreat. And it's so fun. It's such a good time. But at the same time, like we've added so many people that it's a lot of people meeting each other for the first time. You might be talking to someone on video for a year and then meet in person. So the first 12 hours is kind of like, oh my gosh, these are my real coworkers, and it's like a slightly awkward, and then it kind of turns into like everyone starts getting really comfortable, and then by the end, it's just a big party. Everyone's just having such a good time.
Nice, I love that. I think that's something that the UK should take part of a little bit more is these retreats and sort of connecting. Like we do, there's usually Christmas parties that happen, which is coming up now, and
Hmm.
like everyone just goes and gets the big piss up,
Yeah,
and you sort of just party with each other.
yeah. Yeah, those are in the States too. The corporate Christmas party is kind of like its own little cliche. um, Man, I don't turn our company retreat into like a Tony Robbins, team building event. Like it's structured and we have some stuff.
Mm,
But man, I just want people to show up and feel like they can be themselves and share their personality with their colleagues. I think that's the most important thing. We learn on the job. We have personality types in the company that we're all learning and improving ourselves. It's not on me to give them a weekend of team building or stuff like that. I want them to share themselves with their colleagues and
mm,
get to know each other. So that's sort of the mo that we're going for on the company retreats.
yeah, I actually want to leave with one last sort of compliment on how you sort of run your business as well. And I was kind of taken back by it. And when you subscribe to your membership, for me, it was a couple weeks after I actually got a postcard from you guys saying thank you for signing up and sort of being part of this team. I found that pretty cool. It's a very unique touch on sort of that customer
You know,
experience. So I appreciated that a lot as well. I'm
thank you, man.
pretty sure I showed you that on Instagram, and I did get a response from the team, so that was pretty sick as well.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's expensive to write a card to every new customer. Even if you sign up for the second or third time, we still write a card. But man, it's actually not expensive if you think about customer for life. I want
Mhm.
the customers using TeamBuildr to use it for life. So a small handwritten postcard in the grand scheme of things is a very little a small act. Uh,
Oh, and I've got my laptop here, so I'll show it quickly.
you have a sticker.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, there you go. Cool. Did that come with the postcard?
Yeah,
Wow, man, you're sporting. You go hard for TeamBuildr.
I honestly, I recommend it to every coach because for me, it's like I, my mind's racing all the time, and I've got a million different one projects happening all at the same time. So like these little things mean a lot to me because that's something I do. Like I always try and go above and beyond for my clients or my athletes. So having a company that's bigger than I am and sort of everywhere, like the amount of coaches and teams that use like that uses your products, like it'd be very easy for you to forget about the little guys.
Yeah,
So like these little personal touches to me, I'm very appreciative for, and
yeah,
like I make sure to tell every coach team builder is the best way to go. I had some coaches that use some different apps, and I fought and died on this hill for team builder because
mm,
like for me it's a unique touch that you put together that I appreciate, and it's always growing as well.
yeah,
And like this new science, sports science integrations that you are doing, to me that's even better because like now I can be the strength coach and the massive geek that I am. I can apply everything in one program,
yeah.
and I don't have to use a million different apps.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, man. I think after speaking today, I sort of said my piece about why that's the case, and like going hard for TeamBuildr, I think, is a really good example. Like that's the outcome, the ultimate outcome, I think, for our business is when someone like you is saying exactly what you're saying, then that's the mission accomplished for us. So I appreciate you saying that, man.
No, it's all good. Like honestly, I like on camera I'm very chilled, but like when you reply to my messages and we were just sort of having that back and forward and connect and just like talking shop, I was just like I was geeking out because like to me it's like you're someone that I look up to in terms of like what you've done and the progress that you've been through to build this product and this user experience. And for me it's like I look up to that in the sense of like you might be doing something a little bit different, but that's what I strive to be all the time, is like that continuous progression and that integration with and speaking to everyone that can possibly help on my way. And you coming on, like to me that's a big thing as well.
Well, I appreciate you saying that as well. It means especially a lot to me, because of who you are as a coach and your background and sort of the contribution and commitment that you made to the strength coaching industry. You're exactly the person that I want to hear that from. So I really thank you for saying that.
It's all good. And anytime you have something coming up that you want to talk about, I would love to have you back and just pick it apart.
Yeah, let's do one where I go through my Whoop readings and you can help me interpret what the hell's going on here.
I'm actually I like Whoop, the concept of Whoop. So I actually have mine right here. So I did use it, and it's very beneficial because it sort of gives you perspective on your sleep. The only thing that I don't like about it is that they don't tell you how they come up with the metrics. Like they make sense, they 100% make sense, and they're very useful metrics.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit of the geek, and I want to know why they've gave me that number, if that
Yeah.
makes any sense. And
Well, I mean, offline, online, whatever. I love to talk to you about it because I have the same sort of thoughts. Um, I do got to run, but I have the same thoughts, and I do want to get into it because I really like how Whoop influences my day to day behavior, but I also believe that there's more to be done if I get to a point where I want to optimize behavior instead of like correct behavior or respond to behavior, and I want to start optimizing future behavior. I think that's where I'm ready to go with Whoop, and that's where I'm starting to think a little bit.
At some point, whether it's online or offline, I'll show you the Excel sheets that I've made based on these sleep performance patterns. I think you'll enjoy that too.
Okay, all right. Sounds like we got another podcast in the works.
I'd love to. Honestly, you've given me a lot of insight into like career development and entrepreneurship, and just how effectively you can communicate with different organizations as well.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. And look, thanks for having me on. I had a blast talking about
No, it's all good. Honestly, it's 2 hours in, and I'm super appreciative that someone like you would come on a podcast like mine.
No, happy to do it, man. Had a lot of fun.
Peace. Thank you.